Alrighty. The second to last devlog that I'm recording today. Devlog 5 and or 6, depending if you count devlog 1, which, I kind of count it. It was my first devlog, but I didn't even have Godot yet. I just was messing around with Blender, so it counts, kind of, but that's neither here nor there. As it stands right here, it's going to be labeled as devlog 5, or devlog 4. And I'm probably just going to have 2 devlog ones. Yippee. So, devlog 4. Great. This was my first time working on an enemy. I'd already done a character, a player character. It runs around, it jumps. Yippee. But today, I needed, something to interact with. A player in a void could make an interesting game, but I think at that point it's more just like a very interactive sort of model of sort of statue, like a very interactive digital statue. That's sort of how I feel about Journey, the game Journey. It's sort of an interactive statue with a lot of ambiance, a lot of atmosphere, and that in itself is very, very worth your time and very worthwhile. And that's nothing to say I have anything against those interactive statues. I have personally a lot of fun with it, especially in Journey. That sort of had like a meta narrative going on, involving more the player than the actual character. Just a very cool game. But that's not the kind of game I'm making. The kind of game I'm making is a game, as opposed to an interactive art installation. Not to say that there's anything wrong with interactive art installations. I love them. But that's not what we're doing here. So, what are we doing here? Great question. We're creating our first enemy. Now, our first enemy, in the time of devlog 4, was purely in Blender. I have it up on Godot. I'll get to what all this means in the next devlog, but in Blender, I had created this funny looking guy. And that was a combination of about 5 bones, 2 animations, and a fuck ton of trial and error. As usual, per usual. So, for this guy, security Mark 35. Yippee. I had gone through and I had been trying to figure out how do I get the wheels to work. Because the wheels were attached to the body. So I had actually technically modeled this entire thing twice. The first time, the wheels were attached to the body, and so I couldn't weight paint them, and therefore I couldn't animate them. Hooray. And the second time, I had them as separate objects, which means that their material is fucked up, which means it's still not complete, even though it's complete. Yippee! Now, I'm not going to get onto what that means until tomorrow, because the wheels being separate objects isn't super relevant for now. As it stood, I was really just working on getting him set up for today. So, his default actually isn't this. Now, I know this animation technically hasn't labeled as default. That's not entirely true. Technically, his default is this extension. So I have him modeled like this, but I wanted him to look like this when he's contracted. And this you want him to see mostly, and this will just be like a punch animation. Now, the punch starts with it fully extended, and then retracting. And that is by design. That is because I know that this will be playing on loop constantly. It's just a one-frame loop. And you can see that because it's fucking up everything right there. Because it's a one frame loop, it just stays completely still. And then the punch on the very next frame immediately extends outward and then retracts slowly. And that's in order to give an illusion of speed and impact. You probably have heard of the general motif that the less amount of frames, the faster it seems. And that really does hold true, because it'll give the illusion to you that it was just so fast you couldn't necessarily perceive it, even though technically it's teleporting between the constrained and the fully extended. That was just a clever decision I chose on my own behalf, as opposed to working it the other way, where I'd animate the bones to extrude outward in contrast to impressing in. I think you could probably do it either way. I'm not going to test that myself because it's already finished. Why would I do it twice just to prove that you can do it both ways? This just seemed faster to me. This just seemed more ergonomic. It just seemed more just easier. So going through what I'd done today, it was mostly design. So this isn't a placeholder design. This is the finished model, quote unquote, as opposed to the current box head, which is a placeholder as it stands. This texture and design is completed in my eyes, and the design is it's a combination of things. So this is technically my second time working on this project. I guess you could say. In my opinion, it's my first, because the first time was really disastrous, but it's my second time working on this project, quote unquote. The first project had the codename Rage Against the Machine. It was a turn-based RPG where your turns were dictated by mini-games, WarioWare style, as opposed to the luck of the dice. I wanted to program something that was easy to program, like a turn-based RPG, but I wanted to make it stylish enough to where it wasn't boring, and that is where the WarioWare thing came in. And one of the main enemies was this funny-looking guy, except instead of having this face, he would have photorealistic eyes and a photorealistic mouth, and his texture would be a hodgepodge, basically a collage of a bunch of different textures that I'd taken in real life. So, like, the metal plating was a picture of the side of my mini fridge, and that was what he looked like, was just this, except just a little bit funkier. Now, the design itself that culminated to that sort of rectangular shape with wheels on the bottom, that is a basic design of a robot that you'll see in generally a lot of robot media that involves robot fighting. So in robot competitions, you'll have this sort of design, except instead of pushing outward, it'll scoop upward, and that'll flip the other robot over, and then you win. Sometimes less is more. I think they did it in Lab Rats. This specific shape and the light on the top is modeled after Teen Titans Go, the cartoon spin-off of Teen Titans. The Killbot, which was, I think, a funny little just box that kills people. It was a funny bit to me. I thought it was cute. I wanted to emulate that, but I didn't want to steal it directly. That would be silly. It wouldn't be mine, and I hate when things aren't mine. So really, the Killbot really just served to design the shape. Now, as for the pushing motion, that was designed by simply, I wanted something easy to work on first. I didn't want the first enemy to have any projectiles or have any complex tracking or anything like that. So my decision was it would just be a simple piston. Pushes you forward, knocks you back. Easy. 2 animations. Don't have to think about it. That's it. And that is ultimately what I'd accomplished. The face itself, I drew inspiration from God from Poon Poon and A Pot of Greed from Yu-Gi-Oh! I have not read Poon Poon to completion. I don't intend to. I stopped at like chapter 12 when things started getting weirder than they'd already been. But I did like how God was super unnerving because he had this, despite his emotion, despite his inflection, despite anything, he had this constant smile that just would not stop. And because of that, a lot of my enemies are going to be based on that sort of unnerving, uncanny valley, plastered smile that never changes. So that's where the design for the security piston comes from. That's all I really did yesterday was just model and animate. The biggest obstacle that I had that day was actually the weight painting, because at the time, all 4 of these were the same object, and because they were all the same object, they were misbehaving a little bit. They were having a little bit of an issue where whenever I tried doing a basic walking animation, or rolling animation I should say, the entire fucking robot would just freak out. And that was a weight painting issue, and that's when I got more into depth with weight painting, and I learned a little bit more on how they work. Like, for example, weight painting isn't based on the planes, it's actually based on the edges. I didn't know that until, like, yesterday, which, cool beans. Once I figured all that out, I'd exported the wheels as separate objects, as instructed, so that way I could animate them using physics, as opposed to just having them be a bland animation. In my next day vlog, I will talk about how I had programmed it finally, and I have the result, and we'll be caught up to today. We'll be caught up today. I won't have to record any more of these for today. And in future, hopefully devlogs will become a weekly occurrence, where I talk about my progress, what I'd worked on, what I was supposed to but didn't work on, and I'll just set it to every week. I'll do a devlog that may be this length, may be shorter. Who knows? Until then, I'll see you in what to me will be 30 seconds. What to you will be whenever you so choose.